make my mind like, wow.
I ran a football team.
Wow, my Gideon.
So we were dead.
So Geoff, welcome. Hi, welcome back to Derbados Inn. And today's episode is very exciting because we are going to be talking to a person that really started a big movement in Derby and have touched several lives and left this beautiful legacy behind. So today we have with us Geoff Holland.
Woohoo!
Oh, thank you.
He's a father, he's a grandpa, and we can't wait to hear everything about the journey that this blessed man has to share with us today. So Geoff, welcome.
Thank you. Delight to be with you.
No, the pleasure is absolutely ours.
Yes, that's true.
So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from? Who are you? Who is Geoff?
Well, my name is Geoff Holland. I was born in Stockport, near Manchester, and grew up in a very primitive kind of household, with no electricity, no baths, outside loom, and I was born into a single parent, and my mum struggled, but we maintained and we managed to do it. And I stayed there and went through school, and then I left at 15, as you did in those days, and I went to become a radio and television apprentice.
Wow.
Okay.
And I worked a year in Stockport, and then I transferred to a company called Reader Electric, which was based in Wilmslow, and had workshops in Style. And I completed my 7 years there, and went to college 1 day a week and a night school, and got my sitting gills, and then of course it was coming towards the end of national service. But I still had to do national service. But sadly I failed because apparently when I was young I had rheumatic fever and it left me with a heart murmur. And so they rejected me, and they weren't very keen in accepting people anyway because it was coming to an end, national service. So I felt that the Lord was calling me. I became a Christian when I was 10 years old, through Stockport Youth for Christ. And I felt that the Lord was calling me to full-time Christian work. My original ambition was, when I went into an apprenticeship, was to have my own business. But God had other ideas. So because I didn't go into national service, I went instead for a couple of years to join the Royal National Mission to Deep Sea Fishermen.
Oh, nice.
I worked a year in Hull. It's a very busy fishing port in those days, with a very large hostel, and I was one of the assistant staff there. I stayed for 12 months, and then they wanted to transfer me because there came up a vacancy in North Shields. So I went to North Shields up in Northumberland and spent another year there. And it was in Northumberland and at North Shields that I met my wife, Margaret. We obviously were courting for quite some time. I finished in 61, and I came back to Stockport. I did another 2 years as a television engineer.
Nice.
And then I felt that the Lord was calling me into full-time Christian ministry. And it was suggested that I should go and talk to an independent person. So I went to Holy Trinity Platt, near Manchester. And I met the vicar there, and we chatted for some time, and he suggested to me London City Mission. And I applied and was accepted. So I joined London City Mission in 1963, and I went to train in Deptford, and I trained there for 6 months, and then they accepted me as a full-time missionary. And I took over the work of the missionary at Deptford and had a mission hall, which was right in the poor part of Deptford.
Okay.
So we were dealing with both homeless and also local people. And we used to have open air meetings in Deptford High Street. I was there for 3 years and then got posted to St Matthias Church in Caledonian Road, Islington. And we always used to have a little joke in the family that my church was based opposite Pentonville Prison,
Okay.
and we lived opposite Holloway Prison.
Oh.
So there was one for Margaret and there was one for me. And I was there 7 years. That was a very tough ministry. Very cosmopolitan, and they were hundreds of immigrants around the streets of St Matthias, and we had some horrendous cases to deal with. People who were just suddenly, overnight, evicted with all their belongings and just put onto the street. And I would be walking down the street to go visiting, and I'd see this family, and we had to step in and do something. As a church, we helped quite a few to begin with, house them, or took them into our homes, and then until they got proper housing again. And I ran a football team.
Wow. TV, football, that's great.
And you'll never believe it, but we used to have football matches. We were in a league, and we used to go to Hackney Marshes, which now is Stratford, and a beautiful shopping centre, and home to I think it's Aston Villa, if I remember rightly, where the Olympic Games were held.
Wow.
And but anyway, it was football pitches, and I must have dealt with at least well over 100 young people going through the youth club. And then I moved, the mission moved me out to the outskirts of London.
Wow.
I went to Barnet in Hertfordshire, and I was there another 7 years. And during that time, that was the most spiritually rewarding time in the whole of the London City Mission ministry. Many young people came to know the Lord, and there are quite a number, even today, who are in full-time Christian work. And then I was transferred, and finally, before I left London City Mission, they asked me to go to Covent Garden, right in the heart of the West End of London.
Wow.
And it was a centre for homeless. Totally opposite to Hertfordshire. There were some very sad cases. Many of them were alcoholics, and we ran a day centre. We gave lovely roast dinners and meals and showers and clothing. And sometimes it was so full you couldn't get them all in, so they used to sit in the alleyway. I was there till 1989, when the Lord called me to Derby City Mission.
Wow, that's great.
I can tell you about that if you want me to.
We will. But just a question. So, for some people that maybe are watching, they don't know what London City Mission or like Derby City Mission is. So could you tell us a little bit, like, what is London City Mission about? It's like, is it a church? Is it a charity? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. It's a missionary society, and it was founded in 1835 by a gentleman called David Naismith. David Naismith is a Glaswegian, and he felt that God called him to start city mission work, and he founded Glasgow City Mission to begin with. And the Lord clearly told him to spread his net across the country.
Okay.
And from there he came to London
All right.
and founded the London City Mission.
Wow.
London City Mission, all the other city missions, they are what we call non-denominational. All the denominations, the Protestant denominations, are in the city missions. Okay? And they endeavour to work alongside the churches that already exist in the cities. Hence the fact that I went to several churches myself in London. And also, we are a charity. The missions are a charity. And also now, with the change in the laws, we are a company. So they, we have company status.
Mm-hmm. So you briefly mentioned about like that you felt called to Derby. How was that kind of that? How did that call happen? You know what I mean?
Well, we have what's called British Association of City Missions. So all the city missions come together every 3 or 4 years, and we have a conference. Now, obviously, because London City Mission had about 150 staff, it's the largest in the country. Obviously, not everybody can go, so it's taken in turns. And it was my turn. And I went to Llandudrod Wells, which is in Wales.
Okay.
And we had a conference together with all the other city missions. And during the course of that time, there, Edwin Orton, who was then the director of Birmingham City Mission, spoke. And he spoke very movingly and challengingly and said, the time has come in this country when we need to plant more city missions. And God clearly spoke to me. And I went home. I told Margaret, but I told nobody else. And we used to pray about it quite regularly. And I just carried on in London City Mission, doing the work at Covent Garden. And then about 2 years later, from that conference, I was asked to come to Derby on deputation. Deputation means you go to talk about the work of the mission to church congregations or groups of people. And I accepted the invitation, and before I came, I felt the Lord saying to me, the time is coming now for a decision. So I began to ask the Lord, well, where? So on my way up to Derby, I went into Leicester, because I knew Leicester did not have a city mission. I walked around Leicester, but I got no feeling for it whatsoever. A lovely city. I've been back many times since, but I got no feeling whatsoever to it. I came to Derby, and during my time here at Derby, 3 individual, separate people came to me and said, what you are talking about, your work in London, we need here in Derby. So that was the beginning, as it were, of starting up Derby City Mission. So I came home, shared it with Margaret, and of course I had to go to London City Mission, and I had to start to tell them. And I spent the next year or so exploring the avenues. I knew the vicar of St Peter's in Derby, city centre Derby.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, I had worked with him in Christchurch at Barnet.
Oh.
And also I had grown up with him as a little boy
Oh.
in Cheadle.
Wow.
So I knew him very well. So I wrote to him and unburdened my heart to him. So he invited Margaret and I over for the weekend, and we came to Derby, and we went just across the road from here in Farley Road to the vicarage. And we stayed there. And we chatted over that weekend, and he said to me, okay, he said, we'll explore the avenue. I will write to every minister in Derby, and let's see what response we get. And he did that. There were 2 or 3 who said no. But there were many others who wanted us to go further. So we carried on. I formed a committee. I got people, representatives of all the denominations, to come and be part of the trustees. And we met. And I got a solicitor, and we applied for charitable status. And during that time, as we met, so the Lord began to confirm that it was right to come to Derby. One day, the boss of London City Mission said to me, Geoff, when are you going to burn your boats?
What is burn your boats? What is burn your boats?
When are you going to leave LCM
Whoa.
and step out into something which is totally unknown?
Oh.
Mhm.
Wow.
So I said to him very shortly. And I came to Derby in July. We moved in July 1989 with £1,000 in the Derby City Mission funds. In London, I had a salary, I had a free house, I had the promise that whatever happened to me, Margaret would be looked after for the rest of her life, and I would have a retirement home at the end. And I also got 2 weeks free holiday paid for.
Wow.
So it was a tremendous sacrifice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
But we stepped out, and I believe God was in it. And we came, and a local church very kindly rented us the manse. It was a Baptist church. And we lived there for probably 18 months or so. And then they decided they wanted to sell it. Well, during that period of time, my mother died and left me her home, which I was able to sell. And the money was put in to into a bank to gain interest, and interest rates were very high in those days. Good return for your money.
Mm.
So there was sufficient money to buy the manse.
Mm.
Wow.
And I moved into Emperor's Road in Derby. And without a mortgage, it was fully paid for.
Wow. Wow.
And so began the work of Derby City Mission.
So, after this, like, you know, sort of like of you settling and you managed to get the demands and all of that. What was like the mission itself? What was the main work you guys were doing? How did you guys started? Like, you know, that first step. How was it? What was the first works you guys been doing at the time?
Yeah, how was Derby actually also? Because,
Yeah.
you know.
Because I think it changed a lot throughout the years.
Yes,
didn't
it did. Yes, it did. yeah. I was very kindly given the loan of some premises for office space at what was then called Junction Baptist Church. They're not in existence today. But I had space there. So from that place, from that venue, I began to look around for volunteers to help me. And I found some volunteers who were happy to do some door-to-door visiting. So we went out doing door-to-door in that immediate neighbourhood, which was quite mixed in the sense of need.
Okay.
And we gathered enough people, contacts, that we were able to hold a Christmas party for elderly people that year. I made good contact with Benrose School, which was just across the road.
Okay.
And we ran a lunchtime club for them because lots of these young people were wandering around at lunchtime. So we put on a snack and we provided table tennis and various activities, and they came to that. And gradually, as that developed, so we began to see that there was also material need. And I was given the opportunity to have 2.5 tons of European surplus butter
Wow.
and similarly tins of steak.
Wow.
So they were delivered to Junction Baptist. So then, of course, I had the task of distributing it. So I went to what was then called the Edel Centre. It's now called Derbados, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Or Derbados.
They keep always changing the name.
Exactly. But it was called the Edel Centre. And in this, very close to where Sainsbury's is today, there's a big square, quite a big, large space. And opposite was Iceland. So I approached the owners of the Edel Centre and said, could I have a day where we could set up and distribute to the needy butter and steak, tins of steak. So they said to me, well, yes, provisionally, but we need to ask Iceland and we need to ask Sainsbury's. Both of the managers in both those stores came out and said, Sainsbury's said, if they take butter, they're likely to come to us and buy some bread. And Iceland said they're likely to come and buy vegetables from us. So they agreed. And we set up. And believe it or not, I mean, there was a criteria that the EEC laid down. And that was people either had to be on benefit or old age pensioners.
Okay.
And they had to prove it. They had to show proof.
Ah.
We were absolutely worn out.
Wow.
1,000 people came in one day.
Oh my giddy aunt.
And that showed to us what a need there was across the city of people who were struggling. And that was 1990, 91.
Whoa. 1,000 people in a day. Oh my, you're like, it just make my mind like, wow, because like in the food bank, when we see 60 families, it's a busy day for 3 hours.
We were dead because, of course, we not only had to set it all up, but we also had to take what was left away.
Oh my giddy aunt.
So we were absolutely worn out.
Wow.
We had another batch about a year later, and this time we didn't go into the shopping centre, but we went to different venues around the city and distributed it. So we didn't take as much with us, obviously. You know, we took so much to each venue, and again, it was all gone. There was no trouble about it going. So it showed us the need that there was in the city. You know, so we were beginning to develop door-to-door ministry and inviting people to come to church and talking to them about the Lord, praying with people who were elderly, and setting up children's ministry. And the door opened for us to get into some schools and do school assemblies and things like this. And gradually, as the time went by, we set up a sports day with all the local schools and a competition with a cup and everything. We held that at Benrose School, and that was a really lovely day and a great opportunity, you know, to just get to know the children and their families. It was fantastic. But obviously we had on our hearts this great burden as to what were we going to do to make sure these people could have help that they needed. So Basics Bank began. Today it's called the Jubilee Project.
Okay.
But we called it the Basics Bank.
Okay.
And we tried, and with the help of DSSS, we got all the help that we needed to be able to help people who were in debt.
Okay.
And we began at Junction, just a small number. But then we realised from the list that we had from the shopping centre and other venues that Chaddesden was a very, very needy area, and especially the Derwent estate. So we got the use of St Mark's Church and we set up there a Basics Bank. We advertised it, not a soul came on the first day. So I said to my volunteers, they were frightened. I said, someone come with me, let's go door to door.
Wow.
And we did. And before I got back, there was half a dozen people there. And from then, it just exploded.
Wow.
And we were dealing with lots and lots of families with great material need. But because I'm an evangelist and I love the Lord, I saw the necessity that not only do we need to help people materially, we need to help them spiritually. So by that time we had moved from Junction and had gone to Boyers Street, where there were some bigger premises, and they had a lovely large yard. And I had a children's worker by then, and we invited all the families from the Basics Bank to come and have a party with us, and in the yard.
Nice.
And he put on a puppet show and shared the gospel.
Nice.
A year had gone by from the initial start of the mission, and the Lord was beginning to say to us, we need to have more workers. So I wrote to the Church of England and the C of E recommended students who were in a year's time going forward for training for ordination. So we had some of these students, and it was wonderful how both the diocese and also individual Christians provided the finance for them to be sustained while they were here. And I appointed them to different churches. We had one at St Peter's in Derby originally. We had one at St Chad's in Normanton. And we had one at St Barnabas, way over near Markeaton Park. And for 12 months they worked in that parish, doing door-to-door, children's work and other things. But at least once a week, we came together to do something together. And of course, obviously, they would help us when we did the distribution of the food and so forth. But we also had open air work in the city centre, and Youth with a Mission did drama for us. And we had an excellent time just talking to people about Jesus and meeting people, and it was thrilling. And there were some others came who we appointed to Baptist churches, and so it became a group of what we called sponsored workers, who would stay with us for 12 months and work with us.
Nice. Wow.
Amazing.
That's just amazing how brave actually you were to go door to door to start these projects, and also the vision, like even to create like what you call today the Jubilee project, isn't it? Because there's so many people struggling still until today. But like being a food bank myself, I was like signposting people to Derbados Inn mission. Like, I'll go to the Jubilee project, go to the Jubilee and like when you say, oh, they were threatened, I do understand, because sometimes they are a little bit like don't want to go, and they are afraid to talk about their finances and stuff. But it's just so brave to start something like that. It just brings such a massive difference. And when we look at Jubilee and the work that DCM does today, it's amazing. Like,
absolutely,
it's one of the biggest, if not it's the big project in the city that works and helps so many people.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah.
And the other, we felt a great need, obviously, to help families at Christmas. And so we began a project called Christmas Connection, which is still going on today.
Yeah.
And we got on board with on our side the Edel Centre and the staff there, and they provided a gift box in the shopping centre for people to donate toys. And we had tags with, obviously the person's name wasn't put on, it was just a girl, age 7 or whatever it might be, obviously because of confidentiality. And people bought presents and put the tag on it and popped them into the box. And they were very good. They loaned us a shop.
Wow.
Right in the centre of the Edel Centre. And it was absolutely fantastic, because obviously we did the packing there, but then we invited the families to come, have mince pies with us, a cup of tea, and you had the opportunity for personal conversations and to talk to them about the real meaning of Christmas as well as give them a present. But he realised that it was expanding, so we began to then think more seriously about distributing them door to door.
Okay.
And going to the families on their doorstep. And that was when we dressed up. And we went out and we knocked on doors and distributed the toys that way. But we found that very, very overwhelming, so we had to come back to doing it in a centre.
In the centre.
Yeah.
Would you dress up like as a Santa Claus?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, or whatever I thought you could get, that was Christmassy. Yeah, that's right.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And I mean, what's wonderful is the way the Lord provided for us. Remember, I started off with £1,000.
Yeah.
But the way was to build up supporters. So I used to go out pretty well every Sunday and to a different church and share the work of the mission. And from that, I gained more supporters. I gained churches to support us. I gained individuals to support us. and gradually the funds built up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but there was just a couple of occasions when it was obvious that I needed to pay the workers, because Stephen, our children's worker, was married, and he obviously needed to support his wife, and the others obviously had to pay their rent and various other things. So I made a decision, and with Margaret agreeing to me, that I let the staff have their salaries, and I would forego mine, and I would go and find a job. So in addition to running the mission, I went to work for pizza, Domino Pizza,
Oh dear.
in Alistray, and I did the weekends
Wow.
delivering, and
Wow.
they were all young kids who were delivering, so they
Yeah.
used to call me Grandad.
Oh.
And they were all going round on their flashy motorbikes, delivering, and I was going in my car. I wasn't stepping down to a motorbike. and I worked for them until the finances built up again. But then it happened again 2 or 3 years later, so I went back to them and I worked again for them.
Wow.
So it was, but, the Lord never let us down. This was the most wonderful thing, that we never, ever got into debt. I refused to allow the mission to get into debt. And the trustees were right behind me on this. We had to keep our head above the water. Even if it was only a couple of pounds left in the funds, we still needed to keep our heads above the water. And the Lord gradually increased the number of supporters and the number of churches who supported us. Now, we were the first basics bank in the country where we distributed free food.
Wow.
So that food came from harvest festivals at schools and churches. And, it was absolutely amazing how the Lord provided.
So the basic banks were like you helped with debt. That's such a hard word. When I speak with people in the food bank and I need to ask them, are you in outstanding debt? I always do this because I never can pronounce that correct. So then you also gave food. So it was also the first food bank in the country.
Yes.
Wow.
And look how many there are today,
There's so many. Yeah.
all the way across the country.
That's
And
true.
you've got organisations like Trussell Trust who help provide to the food banks. It's just exploded now.
Yeah. How was the situation also with the homeless when you came to Derby first?
We didn't do anything among the homeless to begin with. Because I felt that we had to I wanted to build up good relationships with the churches, because they were my supporting. They were the ones who were going to support us, along with some charities that you could apply for grants. So it was important that I concentrated on that and built up good relationships with the churches and individual people. But it was many years later that we started to do something with the homeless. St. Peter's in the city invited me to come and run a Friday lunchtime service. And so we, as a team, we changed our day. We had a staff meeting in the morning as a team, and then the whole team went to help at the service in St. Peter's. We started off with a very, very small number, but we went out onto St. Peter's Street, and we distributed literature, and we invited people to come And gradually, slowly but surely, it built up. And of course, among them were the homeless. And we built up eventually until the time that I retired. We were getting 70 to a lunchtime service in the middle of on a Friday, which consisted of people who were shopping, people who were retired, young people unemployed, homeless, addicts, etc. And we provided a service which we took in turn, the team, and then we provided a buffet lunch.
Okay.
Which of course was the attraction. Food always speaks.
That's true. That's not a lie.
And we provided the buffet lunch. But then gradually, some of the team said to me, "Why don't we go out and meet them on some of these homeless people?" So whatever was left from the buffet, we used to take out afterwards around the city.
Okay.
And we would find people sleeping in the car park, at the assembly rooms and various other places, and we would talk to them and give them something to eat, and try to do something with them. But at that time there was little or nothing going on among the homeless, so it was really just making contact really with them.
And how long you've been involved in DCN, like as in like in front of the missions with DCN?
I was director of Derby City Mission from 1989, September 1989. Okay, up to my retirement.
Wow.
And I would have retired at 65.
Okay.
But the trustees and I felt it was important that we didn't leave the mission without a person in charge.
Okay.
So I agreed to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed on for 2 or 3 more years until we found Ali Kay.
Yeah.
And he became my next director.
Ali's fantastic, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I love Ali. I had a lunch with him yesterday, and every time I sit down with him, I have such a lovely time. He's just amazing.
Yeah.
He's really amazing.
Yes, he developed it much, developed the mission further than I had developed it.
Okay.
Because street pastor work came in, and then things like this,
So how long were you like with DCM director then? It was
from 89
1989 till
2010.
Yeah.
Yes, something like that. Yeah. Yes, that's right. We had our 25th.
Okay.
So it would be about 27 years.
So 27 years you've been like
in front of
DCM, and actually being an example of obeying God, isn't it? Like, because if you stop thinking, I mean, I find it very interesting. Starting like with £1,000, and suddenly like a little bit after having 2.5 tons of butter. It's just like it sounds crazy, innit? Like how I saw it sort of like come across as the multiplication miracle, like the
loaves
5
and fishes.
breads and the 2 fishes, because you started with with £1,000, and then suddenly I just received 2.5 tons of butter and chicken to donate. So you see that I think this is a lesson that I think we should take ourselves, because sometimes we are so afraid to trust God because it's unknown, it is scary, and perhaps what we have today seems like safe and secure, and it is our comfort zone, isn't it? Like whether sometimes trusting God means letting all that to the past and stepping into something unknown. And I think in our fallen nature, we always start thinking like, should I actually leave what I know to adventure myself to what I do not know? Or should I just get rid of my fear and step out and just go?
Yeah.
So I think there is a big lesson in there, in it, like of
Yeah.
trust and
Well, which is what
obedience.
I did,
Yeah.
but, the Lord never let us down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most wonderful thing. And today, if you think of what the turnover in the Derby City Mission is today,
Yeah.
it's hundreds of thousands,
Yes.
not 1,000.
Yeah.
It's
They own Normanton Road, which must be worth probably over $1 million.
Yeah.
God's so good,
Yeah.
and if you're faithful, then He is faithful.
Yeah.
And you've got to really trust the Lord.
I also find very interesting, like, plus the fact that you trust God all these years and He provided and He took care of you and everything. I also find interesting the fact that you didn't want the mission getting debt because you were helping other people to get out of it, and also making sure that you guys were setting the example. And I think that's amazing to see God's like faithfulness in a way that you also had a little bit more in your account.
Yeah.
In a way that, so this is such a like, so it shows so much about like God's faithfulness, and also His faithfulness when we care for other people,
Yeah.
when we help others, when
Yeah.
we do what the Bible tells us to do. Because as Christians, I think one of the main things is, like, for us is to have a relationship with God. I would say it's to love God and the people that God loves.
Yeah.
That's I think that's the main thing about Christianity,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it?
is, yeah.
So keep this relationship with God, but lead people to Jesus. But also, while you do that, you also help them, independent if they are gonna turn Christians or not. That's not the point. The
Yeah.
point is we are doing what God told us to do,
Yeah.
and along the way, God is shown. People get to see, people get to know Jesus. That's just amazing.
I think another thing that for me was very highlighted, and you briefly mentioned, and for me really stand out, was like the pizza delivery. It really did stand out for me. I think it's like the fact that you decided to kind of let go of your own salary to help other people to have how to keep up their families and their houses and their lives. I think it speaks a lot about yourself and your value. And for me, that's very beautiful, because that's something so unique and beautiful to see. Because, quite frankly, sometimes we see many companies nowadays that all they think is about themselves and how much more I can make. If my coworker is not gonna make as much as I will, oh, so bad, so sad. Who knows next month? It's basically like that. When we see and when we hear the story about the pizza, like seeing you giving up of your own salary to support others and pursuing a job like a delivery man, just to be able to provide your own, because you originally like gave it to others. It's just beautiful. You can't hear that and just not feel stroked by it. You know what I mean? It's just
it's a value of generosity, isn't it? Like, it's God's values of generosity. And I think, and you've seen through, like, just by what you were saying, you have seen God's faithfulness through all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning. I mean, we were in Boyer Street for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the mission was growing. We were expanding, and we realised that the premises that we had were not really suitable
anymore.
Yeah. But it was at that time that I was approached by the trustees of Quorn Drive Free Church in Allastray.
Okay.
Their congregations had dwindled so much that they decided that they were going to close.
Mm.
And they came to me and the trustees and offered us their church as a gift.
Wow.
And so we accepted and we moved into Corn Drive, Allenstray, as a base. And we had a little bit of opposition from the local neighbours before it happened, and we had a meeting, and the place was packed with people who were obviously out to object.
Yeah.
Because it was the city mission coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the trustees of the church handled it brilliantly. And first of all, they said to them, if all you people came here on a Sunday, we wouldn't be offering our premises to Derby City Mission. So we challenged them.
Wow.
And then I said to them, I'm not here to bring the homeless here or the drug addicts. We just want to have it as a place that we can do our administration and stock up our resources.
Mm-hmm.
We did do an elderly work there. My wife ran that, and we did what was called tea time, and we had a large group of elderly people from around Corn Drive who came every week. And they heard the gospel, and they shared tea together, and we stayed there. And it was I retired from there, and it was Ali Kay who then moved on
Right. Yeah.
to Charnwood Street, and then of course Julio moved on to 10 Normanton Road. So that's how it's developed over. But it began because we had a gift. The Lord saw that we needed something.
Needed it. Yeah.
And of course Corn Drive, brought us quite a bit of money when we sold it
Wow.
to buy Charnwood Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know. So, all the way along the line I have found the Lord has never, ever let me or the mission down, and that is very important. And I think it was because we had our priorities right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we were there to care for people, the vulnerable, the homeless, the people in debt, but we also needed to share the gospel
Yeah.
and tell people. And Stephen had some wonderful opportunities in school. We did a lot of school ministry, and as well as all the other things that I've mentioned. And it was, we did assemblies, we did Bible explorers, and we did harvest festivals, we did lunch clubs, and we were all prepared to help each other as a team. We weren't just building up our own little empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
in particular churches. We were there to help each other. And if one church was doing something special, we would all go into that church and help them.
If you are watching it today, for us as YWAM Derby, it's such an honor to have Geoff with us, because we heard so much about you and the difference that you've made in the city, and lots of things that we have in the city today, like food banks and so many other projects. I'm sure they're inspired in you, in what you have done. The work of DCM in Derby is amazing.
Yeah.
We are it's just, and also when you say that you are always there to help the churches and connect, that's something that we see in Derby. Maybe it's not as strong as it was before, but we see that part of the culture of the charities of Derby and the church is to walk together, and it's something that you built, so it's part of your legacy. So we are just so thankful. Interviewing you today for us, it's a privilege, but it also is a way to say thank you for all you have done. Thank you for the massive difference that you've done in this city, and for actually making people able to keep moving on and keep doing it, and like how empowering and releasing people to do even like a bigger job. It's exactly the example of Jesus. So we just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
We just to say it's an honor for us, and we want to honor you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's crazy, and like you're listening to all these stories and you not feel touched somehow. Seeing God's provision and everything, and seeing the results of obedience, I would say, because I think sometimes when we know that we are doing the right thing, perhaps we have that fake impression that, is my work actually reaching somewhere? Is it actually touching people? I don't know if you ever felt that, but sometimes we really feel that being in the mission field. Am I actually achieving something? Am I actually getting there? Am I actually touching someone's lives? But then we just need to go to the streets to see someone that you helped like years ago that you don't even remember their face, and say like, oh hey, and you're like, oh hello. Like kind of in your mind you're like, who's this person that's so good to me? Oh, you helped me in this and this and this place, and you did this and that. And sometimes we don't have any idea of the depth like that.
The impact of what you do.
What we did to people, and how much we help them,
Yeah, I mean, I do see people from time to time who I met in the Basics Bank.
Yeah.
I don't recognise them because I've forgotten about them, but they recognise me and they come to me. And it's lovely to be able to say to them, what are you doing today? Oh, I've now got a job, I've got my own accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
You know, or I'm back with my family again, because they've lost everything, when the bottom fell out of their life. And it's so encouraging to see that, and to know that we have made a difference in the lives of people.
And I think that's why I think this is such a special episode, because we are actually being able to hear this, and to hear your story, and to hear your legacy, and to hear all that you have achieved, and the thousands of people that somehow you touched. And it's just brilliant. I just feel grateful.
On Sunday, I was listening to the guy who preached in my church, and he say that miracles start when we say yes to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And you started, like, Derby has seen a massive miracle year after year with DCM in the life of so many people, because you said yes to God by leaving everything behind in London and coming here, and with just £1,000 to start a charity. So for us, like, we are missionaries, we live by faith. And I think for us it's a lesson, like, about God's faithfulness, that when we say yes to God, if he spoke to us, he's gonna do it. He's gonna fulfill the promise. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sparing some time to talk to us today, Geoff. We are just grateful, and I hope that you are watching us or listening to us was able to feel this that we are feeling right now. So thank you as well that is watching us and listening to us, and we hope you felt inspired with this message we had today from a man that decided to obey and left what he knew to start something that he didn't, and seeing the big achievements that he had just for obeying God. So,
and if you were watching that and you have no idea what it like, how is it about obeying God, and how is it about like following, trusting God's faithfulness or whatever, if you don't know about it, maybe you were there and think, how do I say yes to God? How do I start something? So if in your heart today you were thinking about, just say to God, I want that you've done in Geoff's life. I want that you are doing in this guy's life, and I might don't know you very well, but I want to know you, and I just want to say yes to you, yes to whatever you have for my life, because I want to be able to live this. I want to be able to be part of something that's bigger than myself, and that's going to impact other people's lives, that's going to change the atmosphere of the city, or the atmosphere of my family. Maybe you just need, and just God can do it. So if you feel challenged by that today, you can drop us a message on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. Just drop us a
Wherever
message
you find
everywhere.
us.
Yeah, wherever you find us, in the streets when you go and ask questions. But it's something that you learn from today, that at the moment that you say yes to God, that say yes to Jesus, your life is never going to be the same. We are walking here in the unknown, but as Geoff said, he doesn't regret that, and as I don't regret either. So so I just hope this episode has blessed you, that you have felt blessed and inspired by it, and we hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next episode of
Derbados Inn.
Thank you. Bye.